Hey guys, and welcome to an edition of Kill the Clock podcast. I'm Jeff Pirtle here with Ravneet Singh. We spent a little over a week at the NBA Las Vegas Summer League, and we're here to talk about what we saw. How's it going, Rav?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing good. So I think what we should start off talking about is what it means to take a look at how to evaluate the talent and play style that we saw there.
Well, I mean, the basketball is not that great. It's kind of hard to put a lot of value into these games and how the performances, I think. Like Carl Anthony Towns, I think he shot like 40% last year in summer league, and he didn't look like a number one pick. I was there last year also, and I saw Porzingis's first game, and the Knicks were trying to post him up, and I think use him in the triangle, um, and that was just not very efficient for him, and he didn't look that good, and so both of those guys ended up being the best rookies in during the season. So I think it's helpful in some ways, but at the same time, um, I don't know if you should put too much value into it. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think there are players that their style of play really kind of translate better to the summer league, not necessarily with NBA caliber athletes all over the floor. And they might look like they're going to destroy in the NBA if you just take into consideration what they do on a summer league basketball court. And then there are other guys that might not look like they're quite there, might look underdeveloped, that um, when they get to the NBA and start to grow and play every day, week by week, they really flourish. And I think that part of that is just due to the consistency, playing with teammates, building that chemistry. I think chemistry is a very undervalued um, part of the game, and it kind of shows that, like you said, with Carl Anthony Towns and Kristaps Porzingis, when you take a look at what happens in the summer league game over 1 week of play, it might not be a great indication of who's going to be an outlier or outstanding in years to come.
Yeah, like Seth Curry last year was the leading scorer in the summer league. He averaged 24 points per game, and I mean, the Kings really didn't use him that well, and that's a testament to the Kings being just a bad organization. But like he did really well in summer league, like you were saying, but he wasn't going to do that in the league, and he's not going to do that, like have those same type of performances in the league, even though he did play better near down the stretch. Um, so another thing like about summer league, I guess I feel like it's an in between college basketball and like the NBA. Like it's not like complete NBA basketball. Like there's the pace is more than college because of the shorter shot clock, um, but it's not as quick as the NBA. It does give teams the indication of like if you're not reading the offense and not like if you're not reading the offense well at the summer league, that you have a lot of stuff to work on. Um, but I think pace is another thing that is like makes it harder for these guys to play in summer league. So you look at a guy like Buddy Hield, he kind of struggled early on, um, but I wonder like I wonder if that's just the typical adjustment of like transferring like from the shot clock and the pace from college to the summer league.
I definitely think that's a part of it. I also think that what's nice in terms of the difference between college and the NBA Summer League is obviously in college, teams are really focused on putting the best team out there and emphasizing winning. Whereas in the Summer League, these teams are more interested in seeing their best prospects play over long periods of time and how they handle kind of their roles or can assume a role once they transition into the NBA. So, like Jamal Murray, for example, he had a lot more of a ball handler, ball dominant role than you would typically see when he was on the floor in college because they're interested in seeing how he transitioned, I feel like, into being the man potentially someday and being that ball dominant player. And I think he did a lot better than what we saw in a game by game, college play. And I think that players have a chance to really stand out or kind of give teams an idea of how they need to improve in other lights. So I think that that's what is really nice about the summer league is kind of seeing these players assume larger roles or lesser roles depending on where they're expected and how they're expected to play once they get to the NBA.
Yeah, it's kind of like the D League in that sense, right? Like y- you don't I don't think people will really care how well your D League team does. They just want to develop those players, right? That's why it's called like the developmental
Definitely.
league. But were there any players that you felt like that stood out during the summer league for you?
Definitely. So the player I was most interested by was Thon Maker, just because of how controversial of a pick it was. He kind of came onto the scene out of nowhere, and he was picked certainly well ahead of where anyone really saw him being taken. And so I made sure to check out several Bucks games over the week, and I was very impressed by him. Honestly, when he was in catch and shoot situations, I thought that his shot mechanics were really solid, but off the dribble, he really chose to lean or fade in his shot. So I think he needs to work on that. He's really quick for his size on the offensive end in kind of a face-up type of gameplay. But honestly, on the defensive end, I think he's going to be bullied by most bigs. He's going to struggle for a little while defending in the perimeter. I think there are going to be a lot of guys that are going to blow right past him. But there's a lot more there than I was expecting to see, regardless of the age concerns.
So where do you stand on his age? How old do you think he is?
I honestly, until there is indication that he's older, I'm going to go with 19. I don't really think that there is enough information, and I don't think there will be enough information out there to ever kind of confirm that he's older than what has been presented. And it's tough, but it's just one of the you kind of have to take with a grain of salt and know that at least you're getting a basketball player out of him as is, and I think that he is going to be a rotation player, possibly right from the get go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure about his age either, and I did a lot of research on him. I, I would probably lean towards what you're thinking too, like around 19. I mean, he looks pretty young, like just looking at his face and he's yeah. I mean, he looks really young. I, I could see that he could be maybe more than like maybe 23, maybe. But like regardless, I think teams weren't even sure how old he was because no one knows what age he went from Africa to Australia. I mean, his life in Australia and after was pretty well documented, um, especially when he came to the States and his like hoop mixtapes videos were coming out. Like everyone, he was on the NBA radars and like fans' radars since then. So as far as his age, I think that's been overblown. And as far as his like performance, I was pleasantly surprised also. I didn't think he was going to do as well as he did. He does look like a modern stretch four. He does need to get stronger. I'm worried about his like post defense. But his shooting was it showed potential, right? Like you're right. Like he was fading away and he wasn't consistent. His shot seemed a little bit flat. Um, but I mean, it's typical for a rookie like to struggle shooting in summer league, and a lot of guys did. Even like uh, like guys like Felder and Ulis who were like going to be better shooters, they didn't particularly shoot that well at times either. Or Buddy Hield, right? Like the best shooter coming out in the draft, he didn't shoot that well as people thought. So the shooting potential is there, the defense potential is defense. He's athletic. Um, right now, it doesn't seem like where he was picked was a stretch, and That's how it seemed on draft day.
It definitely seemed like a stretch on draft day, and kind of what you were saying with Buddy Hield. I think he's a lot better than the shooting performances that he gave in summer league. Honestly, he shot himself and his team out of a couple of games, and I think that it kind of is going to be one of those things that takes him a little bit to transition from the mindset of just chucking and the kind of need to always be the guy on the ball with the ball in his hand and throwing up shots, because this New Orleans Pelicans team in summer league particularly was not very good around him on the offensive end. So with Buddy, he shot himself out of the game several times. The team around him offensively really wasn't in a spot where him creating would really get them better looks than the ones he was throwing up there. But it would be nice to have seen him, pass the ball off more, kind of see his ability to contribute and distribute offensively. But back to Thon Maker, I do think that there is a lot going for him in his game. I think that he was playing really smart basketball and getting on the deck, really hitting the floor for loose balls. He was really a way better hustler than I thought he would be. And there was just a lot going on there for him. One thing that in particular that I saw that really impressed me was he was pointing out open men from the block in post-up opportunities to the ball handler. So the ball handler would be at the top of the key. He'd see somebody in the elbow or the block, and he'd point to the open guy, and the ball handler would notice him, and it'd create an open three for the Bucks that wouldn't have been seen otherwise. So I think that there's a lot there for him, and I think that his potential is a lot higher than, like you said, anyone would have seen on draft night.
Yeah, I mean he works hard and he's smart. He's a smart player. And overall I'm impressed. Um yeah, I mean and he also made the summer league second all NBA summer league second team. So that was pretty impressive and I don't think many people expected that either from him. And as for Buddy, I I watched I think two games there of him. One he was really struggling, and then the other one was against the Kings, and he was really good. And he had I mean one problem we know about Buddy is that he struggles when it comes to creating his own offense at times. He doesn't have a variety of moves to get open. He has his little like step back shot that's really effective. Um, but like they used him in the pick and roll and they just set a screen for him and that gave him enough daylight to shoot and get and make a lot of shots. So I think if I'm New Orleans, I'm thinking about using him that way when the regular season starts, and he may have to start because Tyreek isn't gonna start the season for them, so he actually may have to start for New Orleans and take a bigger lead for them.
I think that would be good for the Pelicans and Buddy alike, just because I don't think that it will be a problem, the chucking that he did in Summer League in
Yeah.
a real NBA setting. But it would have been nice to have seen him hit the roll man a few times, because it got to a
Hmm.
point in particular games where there would be hard doubles on him, and he would just be looking for just that inch of space to get the ball off. And still, like, just there are a couple air balls, and you just don't see that from Buddy Hield, especially in Oklahoma. I mean, his numbers were insane, and his percentages extremely high. So it was a little unsettling to see him like that. But once he is surrounded by more talent, and specifically Anthony Davis, hopefully that will change and he'll be able to get more in the rhythm of an NBA offense. But you mentioned there for a second the NBA All Summer League first and second team. Let's talk about what we thought about their decision to put their ordering, I guess, of the summer league teams and what we would change in terms of the rankings. So for the NBA first team All Summer League, it was Tyus Jones, Jordan McRae, Bobby Portis, Ben Simmons, and Alan Williams. What do you think of those?
The one guy I don't really agree with there was Jordan McRae. He took a lot of shots and he was kind of a chucker, I felt like. Tyus Jones played well. He was probably I remember watching his last three games and he was often the best player for he was the best player for Minnesota overall, and he seemed a lot more in control than he did in the regular season. Ben Simmons was just like excellent when he played, um, and Bobby Portis also was a beast down the stretch. And I actually thought that he should have won um, the MVP of the last game um,
Agreed.
instead of Jerry and Grant. Um, and to be honest, I didn't see much of Alan Williams. I don't know what you thought about him, or what do you think about the rest of the first team?
So I liked what I saw with Alan Williams. He was always contributing in those Phoenix games, especially the final few. The fact that he made the first team, though, was a little confusing to me. I had him in my second team all summer league. For my first team, I had Tyus Jones, D'Angelo Russell instead of Jordan McRae. I totally agree. I was not impressed with Jordan McRae as much as several other people. I was really surprised with the impression that he left among most people watching because he scored 24.3 points per game, but he did it on 47 out of 125 shots. That's 37%. Like he was chucking every time he touched the ball. It was kind of, I thought it would be detrimental to his value, but apparently I'm the only one who thought so. I was really surprised by this ranking, to be honest, but
Mhm.
we sound like we're in agreement there that it kind of was misleading or kind of confusing that he made the first team. So he dropped off, and I added D'Angelo Russell for my first team, and then I had Bobby Portis, Jalen Brown, who moved up from the second team to my first team, and Ben Simmons. So to recap, my first team is Tyus Jones, D'Angelo Russell, Bobby Portis, Jalen Brown, and Ben Simmons. And Alan Williams moved to the second team, and Jordan McRae dropped off of either team.
Okay, good, because I don't think Jordan McRae should be on either team when he's shooting that bad of a percentage.
Yeah,
I think like Trey Lyles and Devin Booker played well, but they didn't play that many games, so probably
Mhm.
that's why they didn't weren't. And same with Chris Dunn, like that's probably why they weren't considered.
That's who I
Uh,
had where was in consideration instead of D'Angelo Russell too was Chris Dunn.
right. Yeah, but Russell makes a lot of sense, and I think he deserved to be on the first team. Um, and Rozier also. Did you have him in your on either team?
So I didn't have Rozier. He was awesome throughout all summer leagues. He was great in Utah too, and I was really impressed with him from the three games that he did play. But it was kind of the same factor. I mean, he the fact that he shot at 62% and scored 21 points per game, I thought that was extremely impressive in and of itself. But I just gave the edge to Tyler Ulis and Norman Powell for the guard spots on my second team, who both had excellent summer leagues. And if to round out my second team, it was Norman Powell, Tyler Ulis, Kelly Oubre Jr., Alan Williams, and Thonmaker.
Okay, yeah, that I would agree with that. And Norman Powell played pretty well too. Um, the one guy I think that got overrated, actually, now that I'm looking at the stats, is Jalen Brown, because he only shot 33%, I think, and got 16 points, and he made the second team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean he was impressive, and he got to the basket whenever he wanted to, and he was getting fouled hard and absorbing the contact well, which should transfer well into the league. Um, but that's just a horrible percentage, right? I mean, that goes back to the Jordan McRae factor, where like you're averaging a good amount of points, but you're not doing it efficiently.
Totally. I definitely understand that. And there's a part of me that agrees, but I really liked what he was doing elsewhere. I mean, he also averaged 6.2 boards and 2.8 steals per game. I thought his defensive intensity was outstanding, and obviously he's not going up against ball handlers like he'll face in the NBA. But I really was impressed by him and how he reacted to the spacing. I thought he really did a good job. His handle is a lot tighter than I was expecting to see. And although the shooting percentage obviously was not good, like 33%, it's not ideal. I thought that he was able to play at a solid pace and efficiency that, to the point where I was much more impressed by him than several other of the forwards in Summer League. I thought that there were a few forwards that played 4 or 5 games, like he played 5 games this Summer League, that played as well as consistently as he did, despite the cold start in the beginning, scoring wise.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, is it looking like the Celtics made the right pick right at three?
I think they did. I think that it would have been a logjam if they had picked Chris Dunn, and I think that it's with the way the NBA is going that having a guy that can play defense, it's looking like 1 through 3 at least, potentially some small ball fours, is going to be beneficial, especially when you have. I mean, the way I'm seeing it is, if they're looking for a defensive minded rotation, they could do so many things with Marcus Smart, Avery Bradley, Jaylen Brown, and Jay Crowder. Like, there's just what they did essentially was they made it so that they could have a lockdown defensive team. And then Horford at the center spot, like that is a ridiculous, that is a tough lineup to go up against. And I think that Chris Dunn might be better suited offensively right off the get go, but I think that Jaylen Brown's handle and ability to get to the rim is going to be extremely beneficial. And his shooting didn't look as bad as I originally had anticipated coming in. So I think there's a lot there. I don't think that we'll really know whether or not it was the right pick until a couple seasons from now. But I
Yeah.
think that it definitely wasn't a bad one. And obviously, in the 2 games that Chris Dunn played, he looked magnificent. But Jaylen showed a lot to be desired for an NBA team.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably I agree with a lot of stuff that you said, but at the same time, I would rather have Chris Dunn and or Buddy Hield. And I thought they were going to go Buddy. He seemed like the safest pick. And I mean, neither player shot well in the summer league, so it's kind of hard to say. Like you said, it's going to take a couple of years before we know the answer to that question.
Mhm.
But I think defensively they were already a top 5 or 6 defensive team. They could have used Buddy's like shooting to spread the floor. So that's why I thought they should have gotten Buddy. It would have been crowded at point guard though if they had drafted Dunn. Though I mean, if you're age, it's kind of hard looking at Dunn how well he did in those 2 games. But then again, I mean, Isaiah's was an all-star, and Rozier looked a lot better than anyone thought. And Ainge said himself that Rozier was their best player by far in the summer league.
Oh, definitely. Like, he was incredible. And what's so it's tough because Rozier looked ready and willing to take 3 point shots, but I don't know how that's going to translate because it's such a small sample size, obviously, in summer league, and over an 82 game season. I think that it's going to appear more of an issue than it did in the summer league, and I also think that a guy like Rozier, the athlete that he is, can really dominate the kind of physicality and defense in the NBA Summer League, whereas his size is going to and athleticism is going to be matched every single game in the NBA, I feel. And I think it's going to be a lot tougher for him to create the way that he did in the NBA. Although you can't really argue with the way he scored in the summer league. It's all you can hope for as a team, with a prospect like that. And the only thing you can hope for from here is that it does translate, and regardless of the athletes that he encounters, he's able to create. But that's just a few of my concerns going forward, looking at Rozier as a prospect for them. And what you were saying about Buddy Hield, I think the reason they might have gone more with a defensive-minded wing prospect is because they went with RJ Hunter last year, who and he looks like he's got a solid stroke from behind the 3 point line, but in his second year in summer league, he, despite being advertised as a shooter, it shot only 33%, and I feel like they just wanted to go with a safer pick, even though it might not necessarily be the right pick down the line. And the other thing when you're comparing Jaylen Brown and Buddy Hield is Jaylen Brown is only 19 years old, and Buddy is, I believe, 22, may possibly going on. Yeah, he's 22 years old, and in December turning 23. So, although he's got that stroke that could obviously immediately contribute, I think that they're willing to kind of have that NBA body and athleticism of a 19-year-old, and hopefully teach him how to shoot, especially because his shot doesn't look broken.
Yeah, I mean Jalen probably has the higher ceiling, but I would disagree about the safer pick. I think that the safer pick was Buddy because of like what you knew what you're gonna get with him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's it's hard to see him. It's going to be hard for me to believe that he's going to be a bad shooter in the league. I think he's going to be good to likely above average. I think, um, and I just think that that was a team that needed more offense and shooting, and they relied a lot on Isaiah, and that's kind of why when Isaiah went to the bench, their offense went to crap. And I think another offensive weapon like Buddy would have helped. I think Jalen down the line though, you're right. Like he's only 19. It He has a lot of room to grow, and if his shooting improves a lot more, um, then he could be then he has the higher ceiling. He could be the better player for sure. Um, I was gonna ask you what did you think about Patrick McCaw? I didn't really get to see him, but everyone was talking about him there and was really impressed.
Yeah, so I didn't see as much of Patrick McCaw as I would have liked. He scored 15 points, 15.8 points per game on 46% shooting. He was outstanding compared to anything that anyone really expected from him, especially considering Golden State bought the pick. And what I've seen though, mostly online. So to be fair, I didn't see him too much live. Was he seems a little slow for the NBA game. It looks like he's going to be able to create a little bit, and his shot looks solid. But I'm a little concerned with his athleticism um, transitioning and going forward into the league. But honestly, for a second round pick and for a guy that they bought the pick for, I thought it was a great pickup for the Golden State Warriors, and I think that going forward, he's a solid prospect, and I think people are going to keep an eye out for him too.
Doesn't he
It's
remind you of Corey Brewer?
I maybe a little bit. I think that
Hmm.
he's a little bit of a different body. I think he's like 6'4". I'll double check here, but oh wow, he's 6'7". He's bigger than I thought. So maybe that is a pretty fair comparison. He looks like he he's that size is not what I was expecting. So maybe that is a fair comparison for him. And if he can maintain a defensive identity like Corey Brewer has over his career, I think that he has enough scoring where he will be able to really transition to the NBA game.
I think both players. He reminds me of him a lot. Like both players gamble a lot on defense, and they're both like okay spot up shooters, but inconsistent. Um, but I missed a lot of his games, the ones that he played. and I'm very curious on how he'll do in the league. I mean, we probably won't see much of him on that stacked Warriors team, but
Yeah.
I think Bob Myers may have found a steal there, and I liked the Damian Jones pick as well. But we haven't we will see how he does once he gets healthy.
Yeah, I think that it'll be interesting. Damien's a true 7 footer, so I think that he's got the size more so than a lot of the guys on the Warriors right now.
Yeah.
They really drafted for team need there. So I thought that was a good pickup, but we got to kind of wait until he's healthy. Speaking of people who I think will be great once they're healthy, I really like that Brooklyn pickup of Karis LeVert. I was disappointed that we didn't get to see him in summer league, but I'm interested to see how he pans out over the course of the season. And that's another potential steal I think that NBA fans should look out for over the course of the year.
Yeah, I'm very curious also. It was a I think it was a good move for the Nets as an organization to get younger. And Karis LeVert fits that modern um like prototypical wing player that you want who has good size and switch and who's a good shooter. The only like concern that teams had, I'm sure, was his health.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually didn't think he was gonna go. Uh, I thought there was a chance that he was going to fall into the second round or even later. But I mean, if you could get a good shooter and a guy who could play defense, like those 3 and D guys are just really valuable right now, and you're going to get paid a lot of money, down the line. So I overall I thought it was a smart move by the Nets. They have to get younger, and that was a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. And I honestly thought they had a great off season, but that might be a good thing to save for another podcast. We could go into the Nets future a
Yeah.
little bit and how they played this off season. But kind of going back to the summer league itself, what do you think of Trey Lyles?
So I only saw one game, and what most that was stood out to me was his 3 point shooting and just how quick his shot was getting off. Like his release was a lot quicker, it seemed like, and if he could shoot, I don't think he could shoot that well come regular season time, but if he could shoot close to it, I think it would help uh the Jazz a lot, and he would be maybe a better fit down the line uh, instead of Derek Favors when you have Rudy Gobert there because of how well he could possibly spread the floor.
Definitely, I thought that. I think that there's a lot for him to. There's a lot of room for him to grow on the defensive side of the ball, obviously.
Hmm.
And I am a little bit concerned about how he's another one of those guys that I'm a little concerned about how this scoring outbursts or these scoring outbursts. There were only 2 games, but they were outbursts. He scored 29 points per game, I believe it was, and it was 29 points per game on 47% shooting, averaging 7 boards as well, and it was a 2 game sample size, but he had several 3 point shots. He did not look like he was hesitating at all when he got the space for him. He was creating off the dribble and really destroying the guys going up against him. I mean, he showed solid post moves. I was really impressed overall with the way he was able to score in a variety of ways. And I think that he's a guy that kind of really dominates the summer league, but doesn't ever. I don't want to say ever get to that level of offensive output in the NBA, but has
Hmm.
a lot more of a difficult time transitioning into the NBA in terms of that scoring output. I think the 3 point shot, if you can keep it over the course of a full season, will be an awesome and excellent benefit for the Utah Jazz and spacing the floor. But I don't know how he'll be able to create off the dribble. I think that a lot of guys, especially wing players, are going to be able to really disrupt his handle. And down low those post moves, although they were really nice in the summer league. I think a lot of those bigger fours are going to really bother him in terms of his ability to create space off of those spins and hook shots.
Yeah, and he's a second year player, and you want to see second year guys dominate the summer league.
Definitely.
We saw we saw some from but like guys like Bobby Portis as well, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just a positive sign. And whenever you have a guy who could shoot that well in summer league, and you're just hoping that it transfers over, and I think the Jazz must be happy. I mean, with how well he's played, and I think I think the Jazz are in for a really good season, and we'll talk about that later. But I'm really excited about the Jazz this year.
Yeah, absolutely. They're one of the teams I'm the highest on in terms of growth potential. But um, like you said, that's really all you could hope for from Trey Lyles is to put out 2 games like that where he's going to score 28 and 30 points. And going forward, there's nothing more that he could have really done. It's just like one of those things with Terry Rozier where you kind of wonder how he'll be able to get it done on an offense in the NBA against guys that are elite defenders compared to the ones they went up against. But we'll see in time. I think that he reminded me the most of anyone I've seen since like Tony Snell, who in 2014 averaged 20 points per game and looked like he was able to just beat people off the dribble and shoot threes, and it looked like he was going to really take the next step, and that step didn't ever really get taken. And
No.
the 3-point percentage was there, but consistently shooting it became an issue, and finding that shot because it's tough to get shots off in the league. And I think that that could be another thing that he struggles with.
Yeah, I think you, good or bad, you have to take whatever performance a player has in the summer league with a grain of salt.
Mhm.
Um, it's I think it just gives a better indicator. You have to look. You can't really look at, I guess, the points per game and the stats as much as like how is this
How he
player,
created.
yeah, how is this player creating his own shot, or does he have potential in the pick and roll? Is he a good passer? Is he missing guys? Is he a selfish player? I think those other type of stuff, like their basketball IQ and whatnot, is what is the best thing to look for. But
Definitely.
I think people generally look at the stats and maybe get sidetracked a little, which is normal, and like this, it just troublesome, I guess. You have to just take it with a grain of salt, I think.
Totally. And another player that was outstanding, wound up earning himself a guaranteed contract, was Jonathan Gibson. He's a 28-year-old player out of the CBA. And I think that obviously he performed well enough to earn himself an NBA contract, but I thought that it was a good pickup for the Mavs. They're going to get instant offense and shooting ability right from the get go. And I think that he'll be a solid um, end of the bench kind of fringe rotation player for them.
Yeah, I think they needed a they could have used a point guard, and they don't really use draft picks to fill needs.
Mm-hmm.
But he's 28, right? I think.
Yeah, he's certainly older. He's not going to really, it's not some player that you're really looking for as a high ceiling kind of guy. It's more of a guy that could possibly instantly add something to your offense, kind of come in, make some shots. And I know the CBA already plays with an NBA 3-point line, and he shot well over there. So I think that he's going to be able to come in and quickly adjust to at least being able to shoot from that distance.
Yeah, and I think because he played overseas, in Turkey and Italy and this in China, like you said, you you know what you're going to get from him, and you know that he could handle being a NBA player. And I think he showed it in the summer league as well. So I think it was good for Dallas, and plus I'm not the biggest Darren Williams fan, so anything to help them at the point guard position is a good thing, I think.
So I thought that we could talk about uh, Kay Felder and Tyler Ulis. We have slightly different opinions on the two, and so we've been talking for a while about who we think will pan out. Not necessarily pan out better, but who we think is right now a better contributing player. And I'm kind of in the K Felder side of things, and I think you were in the Tyler Ulis boat the last time we were talking about this.
Yeah, I was, and it's funny because I've gone back and forth ever since I started researching these guys in November or December,
Mhm.
and Ulis always seemed like the point guard who could stay more in control, but K Felder's body type and his strength was always very appealing, and he just put up crazy numbers in Oakland, and I think he also was a better shooter. And I think this is off memory. I think he shot about 88% or something from the free throw line. And Ulis was, I don't remember where Ulis was, but Felder was seemed like the better shooter. So I had Felder one slot higher on my draft big board before the draft. But my opinions kind of changed in summer league, and maybe I'm maybe putting too much uh like I'm looking at summer league too much or putting too much value into it. But uh I think Ulysses looked like the point guard who was more in control, and he looked like he could be more of a contributor immediately than Felder.
Yeah, so I think that in summer league he definitely appeared that way. His turnovers were low. His ability to create offense was high. He averaged 6.3 assists per game and 14.5 points per game in the summer league on 41% shooting, which isn't bad, especially for a rookie guard coming in. And I thought that he did a really good job of just maintaining pace, focus, and finding teammates open in the offense, giving them good looks. A few of them, particularly Dragon Bender, couldn't really finish those. Fine. I think that that's part of the summer league, is just growing and seeing and finding those looks just in the offensive end. But for me, what was impressive about K Felder is the like you said, it's the physical profile despite the size limitations that he has. With Tyler Ulis, there were just times where I'm thinking of a particular play with Jamal Murray, and we talked about it there,
Mhm.
where Jamal kind of gave him a elbow, like a shove on offense. It wasn't dirty or anything, but it sent Ulis flying into the paint from the top of the key, and
Yeah.
Murray isn't necessarily, the strongest guy out there, and it was just it sent him so far off balance that Jamal had just so much space to shoot that shot and convert. So I think that if he's already struggling with his ability to get in front of guys like that, I think that is going to continue to be an issue. Obviously, he's not there for defense; he's there for the offensive end of things. And on the bench or coming off the bench, he is going to be, I think, a very solid contributor right away.
Hmm.
But it's still concerning, I guess, for the ceiling of uh, Ulis.
It is. His size is the biggest thing holding him back. I feel like he also could be a more consistent shooter. But I remember that play that you're talking about, and yeah, he went 5 feet like backwards, and that was a red flag for me. And it's kind of strange because he was like the SEC's like I think all defensive player of the year or something like that, or and he was a really good defender in college, but that might not translate in the NBA just because you're dealing with bigger guards and stronger guards, and it's kind of hard imagining Ulis guarding a guy like Westbrook or Kyle Lowry or even John Wall. You know, and it's not necessarily his height that's the issue as much as his strength, and that's where I guess Felder has really impressed defensively. You know, he wasn't the greatest defensive player in college, but he showed that he could be a good on-ball defender and slide his feet well. The problem with him in college was more of just effort-based, and it could be because he was carrying such a large role on offense, and I think that's probably what it was because he looked like the better defensive player of the two. So I'm kind of hoping your argument there, but on offense, I think Ulis just looked better. His shots, to me, looked more unbalanced and more in control, where Felder would kind of he has a tendency to take these one-footed or like where he would let
Fadeaways.
yeah, and he would also just like kind of fade back when he would shoot, and Ulis just seems more like straight up and down shooter, which I personally like. So there's that part, and there's also a part where I think Ulis has the better floater, but then Felder is better at finishing using the glass at the basket, where I think Ulis might not be as good at that.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. He looked way more polished on the offensive end. He looked instantly ready, like to contribute and use just enough space to get a shot off when he needed to, or his timing with passing and passing instincts look great. I think that he is a much more polished offensive player, and although he was kind of bullied by on-ball defense, he was really surprising with the number of steals he got. He averaged 2.8 steals, and that could be just due to the like his ability to kind of bother and disrupt in passing lanes. But honestly, even though he didn't necessarily look great on the ball, I thought that he really used his weaknesses, uh, or I guess he was able to produce in spite of his weaknesses and his size and the fact that he was getting pushed around out there on the defensive side of the ball.
Right, right. And I think it's the both are going to be backup point guards.
Right.
Um, I could, if I had to pick a player who has a higher ceiling, it would probably be Felder because of his strength. But right now, I just see both of them as being backup guards. And I think to me, I would rather have Ulis. I thought it was kind of strange. I think Ulis got picked in the 30s, the mid 30s, and I think Felder got picked at like 54. And I don't think that's big a gap. Like that's not as big a gap between the picks as it should have been. I thought Felder should have gotten drafted higher. Um, because the pick right after Felder was Marcus Page, who like I would rather have, who I didn't rank very highly at all, and I'd rather have Felder or Ulis. And I'm a fan of both guys, and I love the underdogs, and I like the undersized point guards. Like Isaiah Thomas is one of my favorite players, so I'm rooting for both of them for sure. It's just if I had to pick right now, it'd probably be Ulis just because of like you were saying, like he didn't turn the ball over that much, and he seems like the better passer.
Certainly, yeah. I think that we're pretty much in agreement that they're both going to be backup guards someday. I think they're both capable of being in the NBA if they reach their fullest potential, but doing very different things. And I think that Ulis, like you said, he's more polished offensively. I think that K Felder is going to be less of a liability on defense and also capable of contributing on scoring on offense. So that's kind of why I feel like, because of his physical profile, in addition to his ability to score, that's why I'm kind of on the K Felder side of the argument. But I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer. I think
Right,
that they're
right.
both great prospects, and I'm really excited to see them play going forward. It'll be interesting to see K Felder in Cleveland, particularly, whether or not he'll be able to crack rotation at all or get on the floor. And it'll be interesting to see Tyler Ulis compete for a spot, because there's a logjam there too in the guard situation in Phoenix. So going forward, I think that it's just one of those things that time will tell. Like we said a lot about a lot of these guys, and I'm very interested to see what happens.
Yeah, I think Felder might get more playing time his rookie year because they lost
Mhm.
Dellavedova. And I
Yeah,
think the Cavs bought their pick, right? Mark, I think they bought Atlanta's pick. I could be wrong on that.
they did.
Okay, yeah. So they had their eyes on Felder, and I think he will get um maybe 5 minutes per game or something to start with, and maybe if he does well in that time, get maybe play more in the rotation and get 10 minutes per game or something like that. But they could use his help for sure on that Cavs team when Kyrie needs a break.
For sure. All right, so I think to wrap up, we'll talk about the last game of Summer League, the championship game between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Chicago Bulls. It was an OT thriller, capped off with Denzel Valentine's turning fade shot in the mid range. It was crazy. What do you think of that game? You were there. I was traveling, so I had to watch it on my cell phone. It was terrible to be there all week and miss that, but it's the way it goes. Yeah, I was just excited to see it at all, and it wound up being everything you could have hoped for in a championship game.
Yeah, it was just kind of a fitting ending to the summer league week. Like it was a good week overall. I think summer league gets better and better every year and bigger every year, and I expect the same in the future. Um, and part of me wanted the week to end so I could get back home. Being in Vegas for that long is dreadful,
Yeah, it's
but
hot.
yeah. Um, but at the same time, no one wanted that game to end. Like everyone in the building kind of was enjoying the fact that it kept going. Even the guys that we were hanging out with who were there all week too. But we were all excited to see just the shot after shot that was like going in from the end of the fourth quarter. Um, Denzel's shot at the last game was also very entertaining, and I think he hit a three before that. If I'm near the end of the fourth quarter, if I'm
Yep,
mistaken, or if I'm not mistaken, right? Okay,
to tie it up.
yeah, to tie it up. Yeah,
Yeah, it was awesome. Um, I also, as impressive as Denzel's shot making was in the clutch, despite struggling for most of the game. I was really impressed with Tyus Jones. It seems like he just has an affinity for making big time shots, like whether it's
yeah,
the Duke championship game or the Summer League championship game, which by comparison to the national championship in college, obviously isn't that big of a clutch or big of a shot. I mean, this guy does not seem phased at all. He seems like he takes on the big time moments and wants it. He should have probably looked elsewhere in his shot in overtime, but that's just kind of how it goes. And overall, I kind of left summer league feeling disappointed, because I don't know when we're going to get to see Tyus Jones on an NBA floor. Similarly, with Phoenix in the logjam that they have in their guard spots now, Minnesota does too with Rubio, Dunn, Levine. I think that Tyus gets the short end of the stick there.
yeah. I would agree. I think they're looking to trade Rubio, but I'm not sure what you could get for a point guard who can't really shoot that well.
I think that they value him too, like more than any other team, and they're not going to take him for less than what they see.
Yeah, I could see that. But what you were saying about Tyus Jones, I mean, I think he's a backup, but he showed that he could he could be a solid backup. I think like he has the potential too in the summer league. He just looked like one of the best point guards, if not the best point guards, um, down the stretch. And the shot he hit to put them up by three was also kind of crazy because he got pretty much doubled, and he didn't have anywhere to pass to, I guess. And it was a 35 footer pretty much, and it was just no one was. I was when I saw that shot, I was what are you doing? Um, and it went in, and I was kind of shocked. And then Denzel hit that other shot right after, which was also crazy. So that was just a fun game to be part of and be there live. Like I was telling my friends, like I wouldn't normally recommend watching many summer league highlights, especially if you're just a casual fan. But for that game, I would watch the highlights at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I was blown away that Jaron Grant got the MVP of that game. Definitely deserved to be Bobby Portis, but he did play very well as well. So
Yeah, yeah. Grant looked a lot better, and he struggled in the first half a lot, and Bobby Portis was carrying him through the game and kept him in the game.
mhm.
Um, but Grant, I think he had a lot of rebounds, if I remember correctly, and
10.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's probably why they gave it to him. But to me, Bobby Portis was the better player in that game.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much in agreement. But other than that, did you have any last thoughts that you had for the podcast, or are you pretty much good to go?
I think I'm good to go. It kind of sucks that we're not going to see um that we saw Summer League come to an end, and after the Olympics, there's going to be a couple months of quietness in the basketball field. But Summer League was good, and are you looking forward to the Olympics at all?
I am. I'm looking forward to seeing the guys play. Just I'm interested in how everything kind of pans out with the KD drama, the ongoing drama that is Kevin Durant, and just that it gives him another spotlight. But um, I think that it'll be interesting to see how the team performs, and it gives us just uh, another source of basketball in an otherwise dry period. So I'm really excited to see that. And maybe in the upcoming months after the free agency ends, we'll throw up some podcasts about the um, off-season possibly grades and where we see the conferences going forward. We're projecting the conferences as the or before the NBA season starts again.
Sounds good. Let's do it again.